So what I would love us to chat about is just kind of like this whole process, how it's been for you. Um, so where were you like before we started working together?
It's kind of not like I felt like I was like totally flying by the seat of my pants as far as like figuring out like what I want in a job and like how to go about either updating my resume or just kind of like being ready for that. But it's like
Mhm,
it's kind of not definitely was not where I wanted to be as far as like confidence
mhm.
level. Um so that's yeah, so it's about where I was when we started.
All right. And
Yeah.
then what happened for you as we worked through the process?
Oh, it was a lot of like more eye-opening experience where it's just like, okay, it's like kind of jotting down like
Hmm.
specifically like all of the things that I wanted to look for versus like not wanted to look for, and then being able to kind of see those in like a list form and being able to weigh like it's like whether it's like pay or like work environment or like the work itself, and like kind of being able to look more strategically at which things were more important
Hmm.
to me. It's like that's kind of something that I mean, it's just like you kind of like think about doing, but it's like having a better plan to actually be able to do that was like really, really helpful. And then also having a better look at what's on my resume, what it looks like, what to include, what not to include. And even just like the freedom of being able to, it's like, oh, it's like it is okay if it's on 2 pages. And it's like you only, list out like the relevant work experience too. And it just, I mean, it's been a really great experience overall, very eye-opening, very like I feel a lot more confident in like being able to um figure out what I need out of a
Hmm.
job and like being able to like express that too.
Cool.
Like
Love
it's
that.
yeah, yeah.
So then, let's talk about what just happened because you just, had this big win. Um, so let's kind of start where like you had the interview.
I mean the interview went really well. Yeah, I think it's just like I think a lot of it for me was like confidence and like, okay, it's like I know more than I think I know. And I
Hmm.
think being able to like feel better about speaking to those things, I think really, really helped too. And then also it's like the interview with like the initial interview with the group of people I had, because it would be my supervisor. And then
Hmm.
there were like 2 people that I would work with, I think the creative director and then also another digital designer. But yeah, I think like immediately it was kind of more, it was a much warmer group, I
Hmm.
think, than where I'm at now, where it's kind of like the hardcore advertising world is a
It can be a little ugly.
little stodgy. Yeah, I think sometimes,
Right.
but yeah, yeah. But yeah, overall, I mean, because the first interview I felt really good, and there's always that weird feeling of like you feel like you did well, but it's like you don't want to say that you did well because you don't want to
Hmm.
jinx it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, it's out there. We'll see what happens. And
So
then
I'm going to
yeah,
interrupt for 1 second.
yeah, go for
What
it.
specifically helped you feel more confident in your own knowledge, in your own level of abilities? Because clearly, I mean, I didn't increase your level of ability any, right? You were still the same person, the same level
Yeah.
of a skill.
Yeah, I think it was because I mean, because you've always been someone that like I've looked up to, like not just like as a person, but also like professionally too. So it's like I think having that outside perspective
Mhm.
from someone that like I do essentially look up to and see as a mentor, anyways, kind of like being like, hey, it's like you're good at these things, you know how to do these things. It's like, it's like let's figure out a really good way to talk about them and list them out. And it's just like, oh, it's like having that like outside perspective where it's like, oh, it's like I actually know what I'm doing.
Right?
yeah, yeah, because sometimes like when you're in the
Does
midst of
happen.
yeah, it's like when you're in the midst of like a job and like working with clients and like just a lot of people doing approvals and stuff, sometimes you're just like, okay, it's like it's like sometimes it doesn't quite feel like
Doesn't feel
yeah,
like you are in control maybe when you're in those
yeah,
experiences.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think just like having that like outside perspective and like yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just helpful because it's like, it's like I kind of got to see it through a different lens
Mhm.
too, which really helped. The biggest thing.
Good. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah.
Anything in specific then with like those last two interviews that were helpful or like things that you felt made a big difference?
I really liked the resources you sent too about especially like the tell us about yourself because like you never quite it's always a little different with like every
Mhm.
place where it's like, oh, it's like tell us about your experiences or like tell us about yourself. And I think having a more that I mean that was really helpful, that resource that you sent. And then also I did do the meditation a few times
Yeah.
too, kind of like leading up to it. Yeah. So that was really helpful too.
It's very calming, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, it's like I got this.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean pretty much all those resources were just really helpful. So like having a like other ways to kind of like break down like work experience and like what to talk about, what not to talk about, and like just I kind of like jotted some notes and touch points that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned in
Mhm.
the interview too. But yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
good. Thanks.
So looking back, I've got two more questions and then we'll be done with this part. Um, looking over the whole experience, if you were to describe it in just one or two words, um, what would it be? So just working with
Mm.
me, what would it be and why? Like what words would you choose and why?
Oh, okay.
You can take a minute. You're like, dang, I didn't know I was going to be interviewed.
It's like, oh, wait, let me
No
like figure out a
resources for this
concise.
one, babe.
Yeah. Let me figure out a concise way to
Take your time.
pinpoint that. I think empowering would be one for sure. Um, I mean, that's, I guess that's like anything else that involves like coaching and things. That's kind of, it's like it's supposed to like help, like kind of lift you up and like be like, it's like, yeah, it's like you have these abilities, like let's apply them to
Hmm.
like the thing that you want to get better at or like the thing that you want to do. So like I really feel like that uh that kind of sums up the first word. I'm trying to think of it because that was a really big one. Me and then also uh, let's see. I'm trying to think because like there were some stages that were like especially like reaching out for the LinkedIn recommendations and then like
Hmm.
also uh like the messages to like different like science illustrators and stuff. Like some pieces of it were like uncomfortable, but in a good way.
Okay, so they
So
felt
I'm just like,
stretchy,
yeah, yeah,
like maybe
yeah.
stretch
So
you
I'm
a
like trying to,
little bit extra.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of like a word that would um, sum that up. I know there is one. I'm kind of blanking
It's all right.
now,
It'll come
but
to you.
yeah.
It should. Mhm.
I'm just like uncomfortable in a good way is not in the dictionary.
Right? Yeah, it's a little bit hard to define.
Yeah.
That's
I
great
guess
though.
challenging,
Mhm.
I guess would kind of be um, the word for that, I guess.
Certainly just moving, taking a step out of your comfort zone
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
into the growth zone, I guess that's called.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like not challenging in that it's like, oh, it's like this is like hard to do, but it's just like, oh, it's like I really have to like pull some things out of myself that like I didn't necessarily think about or that like sometimes I mean it was kind of it was hard to think about and like some of the things took some just like serious soul like searching and just kind of
Mhm.
thinking about what I really wanted to do. Um, but not also like getting over the kind of the anxiety of just like reaching out to people out of the blue
Mhm.
too.
Did you
So
feel like people were annoyed? Like, looking back, what would you tell yourself? Like the person that was afraid about reaching out? Was it a big deal?
Not really. No, it's just like, I mean, it's like, and I mean, because like I've had people even like reach out to me for stuff, and I'm like, I never feel annoyed by it. So I'm like, okay, why would other people? It's stupid.
But yeah, it happens to most all of us. So
Just so funny. Yeah, because I mean, it's like kind of reminding myself that like, okay, it's like even if like you don't know people very well, for the most part, I'm like, people want each other to do well,
Mhm.
unless they're just kind of a crummy person, I guess. But it's like, especially if it's someone that you've worked with and you know,
Mhm.
or even like a peer that kind of like does similar work to what you do. It's like
Yeah.
people generally, you know, want each other to like succeed too. So kind of like keeping that in mind when just reaching out to people too. It's kind of just kind of keep reminding myself of that
Yep.
too, which helped. So.
Good. And then the last question is, so you started off kind of confused about exactly where you wanted to go, very unsure, um, and not quite like I felt you were a lot in your head. And so it just kind of kept spinning around rather than actually like happening.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So what would you tell somebody who's thinking about working with me and who is in that same space?
I mean, we'll definitely go for it. Because it's like you're not only gonna get it's like not that it was almost kind of like professional work world therapy almost.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was like kind of um yeah, it's like it really just helps you dig deeper into things, and also like once again kind of getting that like outside perspective from like someone who knows their field and like knows other people in different fields too. Like I think it's really valuable. So
Great.
yeah,
I thank you very much.
you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. So.